Hello class, once again I'm Alex Glazner and I'm teaching you about the mindset of success. Now in the last video we went over making your bed, basically the creation of momentum, as well as failure. Why people fail to launch, why they have everything going for them and they just don't go for it. We talked about that and we talked about how it affects us and how our brain works when dealing with failure. So for this video, the persuasive video, I want to go ahead and have you start thinking about a task. The task, rule number one, it needs to be simple. Rule number two, it needs to be something that you can complete daily. Rule number three, if you can, make it goal-oriented. If you're dieting, try and make it sort of preparing a meal or something like that. If you're working out, maybe make a set of reps that you can knock out real quick every morning. Anything that's goal-oriented will definitely help. Now some people, they have goals that they're more complex. They're going to take a little bit more time, or they don't have the opportunities so often. In that case, just try and come up with anything that's going to give you a little bit of momentum. Something mundane, something that you can knock out every morning, something that's going to make you feel a little bit more confident. Now, we talked about failure. Failure reminds me of the story about Jim Carrey. As you know, he's a famous comedian. Well, he talked about his father. He said that his father could have been an amazing comedian. However, when he was just a kid, he decided that he was going to become an accountant instead. This is his father. This is a choice that most people would go for. He already had the training to be an accountant. He had a kid that he needed to raise. He had a wife that he needed to support. He had a family, And so he took the safe route. His father worked at that job for 20 years, and the branch closed, and he lost his job, and ended up in financial ruin. Jim Carrey took something from this, and he sums it up in this quote: "You can fail at what you hate, so you might as well take a chance on something that you love." The whole point of this, the whole point of it, the whole point of acting on opportunity, especially when it's towards your goal, is think about your deathbed. Nobody wants to look back and say, well, I really am glad that I played it safe. I'm glad that I didn't take those risks. I'm glad that I didn't apply myself in this way. Nobody wants to say that. Now maybe you take your chance, maybe you take your risk, and maybe it doesn't go the way you wanted it. But at least on your deathbed, you can look back and you can say, I tried it while I was here. While I had the time, while I had the energy, while I had the money, I gave it a shot. That's prideful. So, you're on your way to success. And you're going to hear a few things. The first thing is that if you fear failure, you'll never fail. The second thing, is that you can think your way to success. There's a lot of gurus out there, there's a lot of books about it, and they'll tell you to close your eyes and picture in your mind. Where are you? In your successful life, where are you? Where are you sitting? What kind of room are you in? What chair are you on? Who's around you? What does it smell like? Are you drinking anything? What does it taste like? What kind of car is in the driveway? And if you picture that hard enough, and you do that every day, and you sit and you meditate and you just think about that spot, it's going to come true. The idea is like you're asking it from the universe. The third thing is hard work is all you need to succeed. So, are these true? Absolutely not. All right, let's start with fearing failure. If you fear failure, you'll never fail. that couldn't be more wrong if it tried. Failure's going to happen. It just does. It doesn't matter how many I's you've dotted, how many T's you've crossed, how many underlines you've struck through everything. It doesn't matter how many notes you've taken. It doesn't matter how many times you've practiced. It doesn't matter. You're going to fail. Everyone who's successful has failed. Michael Jordan missed some shots. Tiger Woods didn't make his goal every single time. Bodybuilders like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he tried to hit, I think the goal was 1,000 pounds. And he would get so close, and he'd get a little bit closer each time, but he was still unable to lift that. You're going to fail. It's going to happen. You have to learn to adapt, and that's going to come later in this speech. Second thing, thinking your way to success. If you can visualize it, it'll happen. If you ask it from the universe, it'll happen. Absolutely not. Anybody can sit down and they can think about where they're at. I'm like right now, I'm in a condo and there's a beach, and there's a nice Ferrari Italia outside. It's not going to happen. Not just by me thinking about it. Because it's easy. There's a great saying. If being successful was easy, everybody would do it. It's not going to work without action. Another thing that's going to come just a little bit later in this speech. The third thing, and most likely the only one that's close to what success is hard work. If you work hard enough, you'll succeed. It's not exactly true. The reason a lot of businesses fail is because the owner is continuing to push this business idea that they have. They go into it and they say, this is how we're going to do it. And they keep pushing it, and they keep pushing it, and they keep pushing it. Their business plan isn't going anywhere. And they'll work 70 hours a week, and they'll throw all the resources they have at it, still pushing the same business plan. And it doesn't work. Once again, you need to adapt. Hard work without adaptation isn't going anywhere. So what about failure? We talked about it briefly in the previous video, but what is it really? How are you to deal with failure? First and foremost, failure is a learning process. That's all it is. It's an opportunity for you to learn. If the businessman pushing that business agenda isn't getting anywhere, and he fails, that should be his indication, not that he shouldn't try to go into business, but that maybe there was something off. Maybe his plan wasn't exactly what it needs to be. Staying humble. So see it as a learning opportunity. When Thomas Edison was interviewed about his light bulbs, he was asked, how did you feel about the 1,000 light bulbs that didn't work? Weren't you discouraged? Didn't you feel like a failure? You failed 1,000 times. He said, no, I did not fail 1,000 times. The light bulb is an invention that took 1,000 steps. That's all it is. The light bulb is an invention that took 1,000 steps. He didn't see every failure as some catastrophic, life-changing event. He didn't see it as an indicator that this is just never going to work, it's never going to happen, that it's some kind of fantasy. When he failed, he just saw it as, oh, okay, well that's one more step taken. Now I can move on to the next. He was using his momentum. Each failure he used as a momentum. Oh, this step didn't work. There's my next step. He saw these as indicators of progress. Think about that. You're creating momentum, and you hit a bump, but you only hit that bump because you were moving forward. So when he failed, he knew he was going somewhere. So how do you deal with failure? Well, you take your lumps. You take your lumps, you keep your momentum going, you see your failure as an indicator of your momentum. Once again, I mentioned Schwarzenegger just a little bit while back. And he would sit there and he'd go to the gym every single day and he would try to hit that 1,000 pound mark. And he failed and he failed and he failed. But then he did it. He became the first person to be able to lift that kind of weight. He achieved what people said that was unachievable. But he did it. So you take your lumps and you keep moving. Once again, as I mentioned before with the business practices, you have to be able to adapt. Stay humble. That's rule number one right there. Stay humble. You have to be able to adapt. You're not Superman. You're not Superwoman. You're going to fail. And if you're not willing to adapt, you're not going to go anywhere. There's a great quote by one of my favorite guys on this planet, Les Brown. And he says, when it comes to failure, not if, but when you fall, try to fall on your back. Because if you can look up, you can get up. That is a great mindset right there. When you fail, don't fall face first. If you look up, that's where your potential is. When you fail, look up and get up. Keep going, keep moving. Use that momentum. It's a great thing. So you've got your mindset starting to form. You're starting to see how you're going to deal with failure, deal with stress. You're going to see how you can use your momentum to push you through those brick walls that you might run into. Some people get to this point. This is that exciting point when you feel you're about to start something that you're going to really enjoy. And they still don't go anywhere. They're still at failure to launch. So, why might that be? Well, we mentioned it in the previous video. And those things aren't the only things that hold people back from trying to be successful, especially in business. It's not just external factors. It's not just the naysayers. It's not just the people saying, oh, well, I know a guy who did that, and you see where that got him, or, oh, well, you're already trained here, you should go there. It's not just these guys. It's also this idea that we've been fed about successful people. We're told that successful people are greedy. We're told that they're manipulative. We're told that they're lucky or privileged, and that's why they're successful. We're told these terrible things about them, but if you think about it, they aren't different than anyone. Are there successful people who are greedy? For sure. But I bet you know a few people who aren't successful but are greedy. Are there successful people who are manipulative? Absolutely. But once again, I bet you know people who are manipulative but aren't successful. Now, luck is kind of hard to define, but I believe anybody can be lucky. The idea when we're talking about successful people is that it just fell in their laps. This opportunity came along and it just, next thing you know, they're successful. The thing is, opportunities happen all the time. And the thing is you can also look for opportunity. There's nothing holding you back from that. So really, what it comes down to is that successful people are no different. They're no different than you or I. Dan Lok kind of mentions this in his book, F.U. Money. He talks about how money turns people evil. They turn them greedy and manipulative and so on and so forth. I mean, we hear that often, right? Money is the root of all evil. But the fact of the matter is that it's actually just the person. Money has nothing to do with it. It's just a tool. Whoever you are, you're going to be that person plus the benefit of money. If you're greedy now, you're going to be greedy then. If you're giving now, you're going to be giving then. So rich people are no different than the average individual. The thing that puts them apart from everybody kind of ties into the luck thing. is that they act. When an opportunity comes their way, they seize it. They don't think twice. They figure it out as they go. That's the only difference. As I talked about in the last video, opportunity might come our way, and we'll say, maybe next month. Or, oh, I'm busy now, can I get back to you next week? Or, you know what, I'm just not feeling that well. Maybe later. Oh, here's a free gym membership. I've been talking about going to one for 6 months now, but work is really busy. I got school. I'll just take it and I'll put it in my wallet here. Just there you go. We'll get there. We put them away. We don't take these opportunities when they're given to us. That's the difference between successful people and non-successful people. Successful people take it and they figure it out. A successful person, if they've been tied up with work and school and so on and so forth, but they've been really talking about going to the gym, and all of a sudden, boom, free gym pass. They don't have to pay for it. They just stop by on their way, to or from work. They'll find a way to make the time. They'll figure it out as they go. That's what makes them different than the average Joe. And anyone can do it. It has nothing to do with their privilege or their luck or anything else like that. They just act. Anybody can do it. The other thing that sets them apart is their discipline. They've encountered failure before. They know how to deal with failure by this point. They've failed. Maybe they stopped by at that gym and they just weren't able to lift the weights that they wanted to lift. But they learned that that's not the end. Your muscles will grow. They're okay with being uncomfortable and lifting even more weights until they hit that goal. They've encountered failure. They've gotten through it. They've hit those brick walls. They've backed up enough to see their way around it. And that leads us to the last part that makes people who are successful. It's their attitude. They stay humble. They realize that they aren't Superman. They aren't Superwoman. They're not perfect. They're not perfect in every way. Their ideas on what they think is going to be successful might not be successful. So they educate themselves. They learn as they go. They go to the seminars. They reach out for help. Maybe they'll show up to a company, for instance, that might be doing something that they're trying to achieve, and see if they can sit down and talk to the owner. Ask for advice. That's how they become successful. They don't try one thing again and again and again. They ask for help. Lastly, what I want you to do is to start to launch. You know about success. You know about failure. Your mindset's there. You've got your daily task. It's time to launch. Once again, you're going to find the naysayers. You're going to find them. They're going to be everywhere. Don't listen to them. As Dan Lok says in his book, you're not doing this for them. You're not doing it for them. You're not doing it to make them happy. And they certainly aren't going to help make you happy. You're doing it for you. So why listen to them? Why let them get to you? Don't listen to the naysayers. Another thing, you already know how to deal with failure. Remind yourself of that. When you fail, and you will, remind yourself that you know how to deal with it. Get through it. As you do, it's going to become easier and easier. You're going to become more disciplined when it comes to failure. And once again, that's a trait of successful people. Discipline. Stay humble. Ask for help. Ask for guidance. Go and do what you need to do. Understand that you're not the best out there. Understand that there's still better ways out there to be discovered. Stay humble. And lastly, once you are disciplined, once you've made your steps, once you're doing that daily task, once you've built up that momentum, once you've taken those steps, once you've taken those risks, once you have asked when you needed help, teach. Help others. Because what's going to happen is people are going to come to you and they're going to ask, how did you do that? And that's your opportunity. And that is going to be universal. It doesn't matter if you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, be successful in business, be successful in stocks. People are going to ask, how did you do that? And remember, they're not unlike you. You were them at one point. So that's your opportunity to teach. There's a great quote by Derek Bach who says, if you think education is expensive, think about the price of ignorance. You can give these people $1 million worth of knowledge just by teaching them the mindset of success. Once again, I'm Alex Glazner. I was very excited to share this with you guys because once I discovered my mindset of success, I started acting on what I always wanted to do, which was the stock market. I made my first investment of $50. And at this point, I have over $1,400. $1,400 in my portfolio from me staying humble, taking my lumps, and continuing to move forward. I never would have done it if I hadn't taken that first step, if I never started to cultivate my mindset for success. And so I'm very happy and very proud to have had the opportunity to share my information with you, to share my story with you, and I look forward to seeing you launch. Thank you, and thank you for watching.